You are listening to Canadian Gothic.
Hello, listeners. It's that time of year again, my favorite time, Halloween. It's the perfect time to tap into the stories that people only tell when the lights are low. And that's what we're about to do. But we want to make it a bit special, so I built a campfire. Out under the cold October sky, with nothing but the crackle of wood and the smell of smoke, we're all going to sit together. We're going to listen. We're going to be joined by series regulars Madelayne and Aaron Airport. But we're not going to be the ones telling the stories. What we're going to hear tonight are a collection of real-life ghost stories told by Canadian Gothic's many haunted listeners. So wherever in the world you are, take a seat with us around the Canadian Gothic campfire. Welcome to the 2025 Canadian Gothic Halloween special. Handsome Aaron Airport, Miss Madelayne, we're here together, the three of us, around a campfire for an evening of ghost stories, haunted houses, Frankensteins, and assorted spooky tales. But before we get into the stories contributed to us from our haunted listeners, let's hear about both of you. Handsome Aaron Airport, have you ever been haunted?
I haven't been haunted by ghosts, but I've certainly been haunted by mistakes of the past.
Okay. Well, very similar, though. They do kind of haunt you and stick around and show up at uncomfortable times.
Yeah, the ghosts in my closet are very personal.
The most terrifying of all. Real ghosts, they can be fixed to a certain location or an item. So yeah, bad decisions in the past can haunt you like a typical ghost. I think you're onto something. What about you, Madelayne? Have you ever had one of these experiences without the use of psychedelic drugs?
I'm glad you clarified because no, without the psychedelic drugs. I believe in ghosts, but I've never had a paranormal experience.
I'm the same. I believe in it. I'm sure they're out there. I go as far as to search for them. I welcome this experience. If I'm at like a creepy house or a weird hotel or something, I would be the type that I just kind of walk around with my mind wide open. But I think I'm too, I don't know if the word's logical or skeptical, but I'm too something. And I think I would be the type that like a fortune teller wouldn't really work for me. I don't think I could be hypnotized. And because of those same reasons, I don't know if a ghost would expose itself to me. But if they're out there and someone knows like a hack to allow us to see them, please email me because I would love to have this experience. And I love these kinds of stories. Aaron, I know you're into theater, writing plays and such. It seems like ghost stories kind of goes hand in hand in some ways to like theater, specifically the olden style.
Well, yeah, any storytelling is theater, but I can't remember the last time someone told me a really good ghost story, like in person, I don't know anyone who's been personally affected by poltergeist.
You've come to the right place.
I can't believe neither of you have had a paranormal experience and you're from and live in like some of the most haunted places.
Nova Scotia is so old, and because of that, I think that's part of the reason we have so many old buildings in old places with so much history and so many bad things that have happened, and it just seems like ghost stories kind of go along with that. And being from Nova Scotia, Aaron says he doesn't remember the last time someone told him a ghost story. I feel like the art of ghost storytelling is kind of like a lost art, even over the last 30 or 40 years. It's kind of going away, much like how conspiracy theories when we were kids, they were a bit funner and lighter. Now they're just dark and dystopian. I want ghost stories to come back.
I have a theory about that. I think that the reason that there's not as many ghost stories right now is because we're already living in hell. And I think that when the world is going through a very traumatic transition, there's not really any need for ghost stories at that current time because all you have to do is look outside your door, turn on the news, all of these things, and you're horrified. And people don't want to be scared as much when the world is already a scary place.
Yeah, I get it.
You got a point there.
Yeah, you got a very good point. Well, Aaron, you said you don't recall the last time someone told you a good ghost story. Well, we called out to listeners of the Canadian Gothic and Keep Canada Weird and asked them to share with us their best ghost stories. And tonight, in front of this campfire, we're going to hear some amazing tales from Canadian Gothic's haunted listeners. Let's just jump right into it here. We're going to go to Nelson, British Columbia. When Angela and her family checked into Nelson's historic Hume Hotel, they expected an ordinary night's stay. But what their daughter saw overnight and what they learned about the hotel's history the next day led them to believe that they had an encounter with the hotel's most well-known spirit. Here is the story of the caretaker ghost of the Hume Hotel, as experienced by our listener, Angela.
Hi, Jordan. This is Angela calling from Regina. Just wanted to tell a story that happened to my family. So this past summer, my husband and I decided to take our kids on a road trip to British Columbia. We typically try to get to BC a couple times a year to escape Saskatchewan. And when we go on trips, my husband doesn't like to pre-plan, which means he has a general idea of where he wants to end up, but he wants to throw caution to the wind and doesn't like to pre-book accommodations. So we were about halfway through our road trip and we decided we were going to head to Nelson, BC for the night. And as we were driving, I went on TripAdvisor to search for hotels in the downtown area of Nelson, and the Hume Hotel popped up. I'm not too sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it's spelled Hume. So I checked out the rating on TripAdvisor. It was, the top 3 hotels in Nelson, and decided to go ahead and call and book. So we booked in. They gave us a room on the 3rd floor, which was room 336. We got to our room. We were surprised by the unusual layout. So the room had obviously at some point been 2 separate rooms at one point, but had been converted into a larger room with a bathroom separating the 2 sides. So each side had a queen bed. So we put my husband and my daughter on one side, and my son and I stayed on the other. The room was comfortable. We settled in for the night. But in the morning, my husband shared with me that my daughter had woke him up in the middle of the night and said she was scared because there was a man with a mustache and a hat standing behind the curtains watching her. So my husband had gotten up, moved the curtains aside, and showed her there was no one there and put her back to bed. She was adamant she had seen somebody. He assured her there was no way anybody was hiding behind the curtains. We were on the 3rd floor. Nobody could get into the room, and it was just a dream. So yeah, he put her back to bed, got her to sleep. So he thought nothing of it, chalked it up to her having a bad dream. He's a really practical guy and doesn't believe in anything paranormal or anything like that. So in the morning, I had packed up the family into the truck, and my husband had gone to the front desk to check out. And the desk clerk asked him how the stay was, and he just kind of jokingly replied, well, great, other than my daughter waking me up in the night telling me somebody was watching her. So the clerk said, oh, do you want to hear the story about that room? And my husband said, no thanks, and left the hotel. I do not understand this logic. I love him to death, but who would not want to hear the story about the room? So he told me this, and I immediately Googled the Hume Hotel and found the following information. So the hotel was built in 1898 and apparently has had over the years many reports of paranormal activity. So it's also known as one of the most haunted buildings in Nelson. And one apparition people see is a man with a bowler hat and a mustache that had apparently been one of the owners of the hotel, one of the original owners. His name was Fred Hume, and the ghost is actually known in that region as being the caretaker ghost. And most of the stories that you hear from the Hume are about room 335, which no longer exists and has been renovated. So as I mentioned earlier, we stayed in room 336, which appeared to be 2 smaller rooms converted into one larger room. So that's why room 335 does not exist anymore, because room 335 and room 336 were combined to create like one big ass haunted room. So I didn't know any of this before booking the hotel. I just was going off the TripAdvisor ratings. My daughter would have had no way of knowing this information, and I just can't chalk it up to coincidence, especially since she said that the man she saw had a hat and a mustache. So it's just wild to me. Hotel's beautiful, though. I can't recommend it enough. And yeah, that's my spooky story. Thanks so much. Love the show. Bye bye.
Her daughter definitely saw a ghost, and the hotel is trying to cover it up.
No, they're not. They offered to tell the story.
The management of the hotel, or like the owners, are trying to cover it up by combining these rooms and getting rid of like the haunted room. I think the front desk clerk, though, isn't involved in the cover up. But as it turns out, Angela's husband seems to be like, I think he just avoids any type of stress or conflict or something, because not only does he not even want to plan any vacations, he wants to just wing it. When the person at the front desk is like, do you want to, can we tell you about the room? No, I'm going to walk out of here and let the wind guide me to wherever I end up next.
Yeah.
I love living like that.
Yeah.
That would be my husband. Not like winging it, the trip, but yeah, if someone was like, do you want to hear the story? He'd be like, no, thanks. Like, continue on.
Even if I didn't want to hear the story, if the front desk clerk was like, do you want to hear the story about that room? I'd have to be like, oh, of course.
At least this ghost seems like a friendly ghost. You know, the caretaker ghost checking in to see if you need any more fresh towels or if there's something that can get you down the lobby. It sounds like a really nice, friendly, hospitable ghost.
Which, like, good on him, because if I died at work and had to work for all of eternity, I would not be very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's an entrepreneur, and he loves that place. He loves that business.
It is his.
Yeah.
It is his. He built it. Yeah, so that is probably where he wanted to die.
He could probably be a prick if you weren't looking after the room.
Oh,
You know, this daughter that saw it was probably, abiding by the rules and respectful of the space. But imagine if it was like some group of like rowdy teenagers in there screwing with stuff. I have a feeling the caretaker ghost probably wouldn't just be standing there smiling at them.
I like how management knows nothing about ghosts, because they're like, yeah, just get rid of 335 and like all these occurrences should stop.
Yeah, the number is haunted.
No. Yeah.
Aaron, and I know, Aaron, you and I kind of have a similar idea on the explanation behind these kinds of experiences and behind ghosts sticking around. I think it's electrical in nature. The difference between a living human being and a dead human being is really just like this one little drop of electricity that makes your heart beat and makes the whole thing, your whole body function. When you die, something happens with that electricity, and I think it just kind of lingers around where you passed away or maybe where you spent a lot of time. I bet you this guy who ran this hotel, this was his life's work, and when he passed away, his energy just stayed there. And I think this is a true story, and I think Angela's daughter definitely saw the memory or the echo or the something of the original owner of the building, and it sounds like they got a good story to tell about it. At least no one got traumatized.
Oh, I'd be telling this story forever. That's cool.
It is cool. It is a great story. And we have a lot of great stories tonight. So let's not talk too much. Let's get right into the next one here. We were just in BC. Let's go across the country. Let's go to Newfoundland. And we're going to hear Carrie's story of her encounter with the silent woman in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Hi, Jordan. I've been listening to your show since about 2017, and this is my first time calling in. Funny timing. This just happened to me over this past weekend. I was in Uptown St. John renting an Airbnb with my sister and her friends for my sister's birthday. So there were about 10 of us. And that night when I was on my way to bed and walking through the hallway on my way to bed in this, historic home in Uptown St. John, I saw a woman, and I just assumed that it was one of my sister's friends. I mean, it was 2 a.m. We'd had a late night. The person appeared to be, fully there, just kind of standing. And I was on my way to bed. I just thought, okay, this is a little odd. And I should mention that half of these people I was just meeting for the first time. So I went to bed and I just sort of laid there for 20, 30 minutes. And And then I got up to go to use the bathroom one last time and also saw this woman on my way back from the bathroom. And I remember thinking, oh, she's still there. She must be sleepwalking, because she was basically just almost facing the wall, but not straight on. I think if she was straight on facing the wall, that definitely would have creeped me out. Sort of a little bit at an angle. And again, it didn't scare me in the moment because I completely thought that it was one of my sister's friends. And it wasn't until the morning when I woke up that I did the mental sort of rundown of who was there at the time. And aside from my sister, there were three other girls or women there at the time. And they were all in bed. They were all asleep. And this woman did not fit their descriptions at all. I'll say that it didn't look like, someone from 100 years ago or anything like that. It looked like a very sort of current modern woman. Wasn't translucent or anything like that. She had glasses. At the time, I thought it was one of my sister's friends, like I said. When that morning, the idea of me dreaming didn't even cross my mind because it was just so real. And I mean, even my sister remembers me getting up out of bed to go use the bathroom. I hadn't been asleep yet. Yeah, so that's my experience. Thanks for listening.
So that had a lot of similarities to the last story we just heard. It's a rented space in a historic old building. It happens very late at night, and it involves an entity, whether it's a ghost or a weirdo standing in the room, that's just not really doing anything other than just being in that space. What are your thoughts on this one, Aaron?
I don't think it was a ghost because ghosts have to be in old-timey clothes. And if this woman is in modern clothes, you'd never hear of ghosts in modern clothes.
That's true.
I think as a ghost...
Haven't you ever seen The Sixth Sense?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Right. That's a good documentary. I like that one. But yeah, you don't often hear of ghosts in modern clothes. So I think you have to kind of be a ghost, pay your dues as an invisible ghost for a long time before you can start to be seen by people. Mm-hmm. So that's why the ghosts that appear to us now are just finally crossing that benchmark and being allowed to appear. And they're from, 70, 80 years ago. So they're just finally making the rounds now. Okay. And so that's why I think it's just some other person, some modern alive person.
Oddly, maybe it was someone sleepwalking, just not one of her sister's friends. So the way this story works out is Carrie is with her sister and a couple friends, but this woman she sees, I wonder if the age was similar to her sister's friend. She didn't really explain that, but the way she described the entity or the apparition she saw, it wasn't directly looking towards the wall and facing the wall, but kind of at an angle, which is just an awkward way to stand in a hallway late at night. I don't think there's any good reason at 2 a.m. to go in a hallway and just kind of sort of face the wall and just stand there as someone walks by you to go to the bathroom. That's it, ghost or not, that's a terrifying thing to do, I think.
Something I really respect about Carrie is the fact that she wasn't like, "Are you okay?" or "Good night." She was just like,
Yeah.
Back to bed for me.
Yeah, no, I that's true. But when someone's sleepwalking, isn't there a thing where you're not supposed to mess with them?
You're not supposed to wake them up.
What happens if you do? Are you cursed
forever?
I
don't know. I hear. I don't know if that's a myth or if there's truth to it or not. But I've always been told that if somebody is sleepwalking, it's best just to let them come out of it naturally.
Yeah.
And to just walk away, even if they fall down the stairs.
Let's move on to a ghost story trope, especially if you're from Atlantic, Canada, like Aaron and I are. We have the story of a ghost ship. We received a voicemail from a listener named Kyle who has a ghost ship story from Lawrencetown Beach, which isn't too far from where I sit right now. I've never experienced a ghost ship, but here on Atlantic, Canada, stories of haunted boats or phantom ships, ghost ships, They're very common, and they seem to date back as far back as Nova Scotia does. Let's listen to what Kyle encountered.
Now, this goes back a long time. I want to say 1996, 1997. I would have been 16 or 17 years old. Now, I grew up in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, which is just a little outside of Halifax area, up the eastern shore side of Nova Scotia. And one of the popular hangouts that we used to, as kids, go to was Lawrencetown Beach and just go hang out at the beach. Now, Lawrencetown Beach is, I'd say, maybe a 10-minute drive up the coast out of Cole Harbour. It's a very popular surfing beach. It's a beautiful beach, huge. And this one night we were there, I want to say it was around the fall time. There was probably 5 or 6 of us just going hanging out on the beach, like kids do. It was probably evening-ish, getting a little dark, but not too dark. And as we're hanging out and we're just kind of, looking at the beach, looking at the ocean, off in the distance, we're like, hey, check that out. Way off in the distance, in the middle of our view, what appears to be a huge tall ship. Old school, kind of the tall masts, sails, slowly bobbing on the ocean, just off in the horizon, way off in the horizon. Like, that's pretty cool. We've seen tall ships before. Tall ships aren't that uncommon in Nova Scotia. It wasn't something we, were truly amazed by. We're like, check it out, tall ship off on the horizon. And we go back to hanging out, doing what we're doing. Not even 2 minutes, it couldn't have been 2 minutes. Like maybe even a minute later, as we're just all hanging out and talking, I look up and I'm like, where's the ship? Like, where did it go? And everyone looks up and we're just like, what? The ship was just gone. It was just gone. It wasn't in our view. We didn't see it anymore. It wasn't an exceptionally cloudy or foggy night. The ship was just there, and then it was gone. But, at the time, we're just hanging out. We're like, that's weird. We can't really think too much of it. It was just, okay, that's kind of strange. We don't know where it went. Decades later, let's say, well, maybe not decades, 10 years, let's say definitely a decade later, I'm reading a book called Ghosts of Nova Scotia by Daryl Walsh. And in the book, a very small subsection of the ghost ship chapter, it's called Halifax Harbour Approaches. And just this one sentence reads, on some nights, a fully rigged sailing vessel can be seen sailing into Halifax Harbour. Now, I don't know if what we saw that night was a ghost ship. Obviously, it's impossible to know. But we just think it was very strange. And as we were sitting there, we looked up, and there was a fully rigged tall ship sailing vessel on the horizon. And then it just was gone from our sight. We can't explain it. We've never really been able to really fully explain it, nor will we ever be able to explain it. Anyways, that's my one ghost story in my life that at least I'm like, that could have been something. It's kind of cool to think about. Anyways, love the podcast. Huge fan. Been listening for a long time. And hope you have a happy Halloween.
Ghost ships, as I mentioned at the beginning there, are a bit of a trope in Atlantic Canadian ghost storytelling, but I think there's a good reason for it. Of course, in this part of the world, a lot of lives were lost at sea in sunken ships and everything else. Of course, water is a great conductor of electricity. Aaron, this just plays right into our theory about the nature of these ghosts. It makes sense that if a group of people 300 years ago died at sea, a bit of that electricity would still be lingering around in the salty water. I think ghost ships are a legitimate thing, and I think that's what he saw. I think him and his buddies saw a ghost ship, and that's why, they lost sight of it. If you see, they're referring to it as a tall ship, but that's like an old-timey boat with the big mast and the sails and all that stuff. Those things don't just come in and out of view when you're sitting with a wide open view of the water. That was a ghost ship.
Okay, I have a lot to say about this. I don't know.
Okay, if you poo-poo on his story, you're not getting the next s'more at this campfire.
The way he's like stroking his beard makes me think that he doesn't believe the ghost ship story.
Let her rip, Aaron.
Okay. I don't think it was a ghost ship. And
Son of...
calm down. I don't believe in ghost ships. I believe in ghosts, but I do not believe in ghost vessels of any kind.
Okay.
So, and I'm even stretching to believe that ghosts have clothes on, you know? Because, like, I believe in ghosts, but I think they're probably naked. I've never saw one, but their clothes shouldn't come with them.
Whatever you die in is what you wear for all of eternity.
How do the clothes don't have the energy that...
It's just the way it works.
It's just the way it works.
I hope it's the way it works, because if I'm ever in this old hotel and I'm going to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and there's like an 80-year-old naked person just standing in my room staring at me, that's horrifying.
Well, it's a ghost. It should be.
Your issue with this story, Aaron, is that you don't think there's any reason for the ship to be there. You would have an easier time believing that
the ghosts were floating as if they were sitting on a ship, and they were
30 naked men
fishing and mopping the deck, swabbing the deck, whatever they do.
I noticed the fire's getting a little low. I got to go grab some logs. Aaron, you get the marshmallows ready. When we get the fire back up, we'll get the next round of s'mores going. Let's have a quick break while I go grab some logs. The fire's blazing. We got one for you here, Aaron. We have a ghost story that relates to cats. This comes from a listener named Rachel, who had an unusual experience after watching the movie The Grudge. Have either of you ever seen this horror movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
You've never seen The Grudge. Come on.
The movie The Grudge came at that era where there was a whole bunch of big movies, I think from Japan, that ended up getting remade in America. I think the most notable example was the movie The Ring. The Grudge kind of came around the same time. But Rachel watched it. She watched it alone. And I guess all hell broke loose, at least for her cats. Listen to this one.
Back when I was in my early teens, I watched The Grudge by myself, home alone. And if anyone knows, that's not one of the best movies to watch by yourself. But anyways, I was watching it by myself, feeling brave. And the movie itself had a very specific black cat that had a howling meow to it. And as I was watching this and seeing the black cat spirit thing on there, I started to hear actual cats fighting outside of my house. And I have 2 female cats that like to go in and out. And they were both outside. They were both fixed. However, when I went out there, I heard them screaming and hissing, and I look over and there's a giant black cat just sitting there in the backyard, trying to, I guess, mingle with my female cats. It was so terrifying because I've never seen this black cat ever until I was by myself watching this movie. So I feel like it kind of conjured itself up. But yeah, he was huge male black cat, just howling at them, wanting to, have his way with them, I guess. And they were not having it. So I brought the cats inside, and it shook me a little bit, but I continued the movie and went to bed. Anyways, I absolutely love the show. And I hope you guys have a nice spooky season. And have a good night.
I'm not a cat owner, but I know both of you are. So I'll let you guys take the lead on this one. What happened here?
Coincidence.
But don't you know all the neighborhood cats?
Most of them. And if they don't have a home, I try and kidnap them. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that's it's weird. It's a weird happening, but it's just a coincidence. Was it a ghost cat? Or what's going on here?
If it was a ghost cat, I don't think it would want to mate with her cats. That seems like unghostly.
I don't know about that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, as we know, most ghosts are naked, and mating is pretty much the only thing they want to do. And that goes for cat ghosts, and it goes for any animal ghosts.
So does a ghost have to mate with another ghost, or can a ghost mate with a human? And then what do they make?
It can mate with a human, but it can't produce a ghost baby with a human.
Okay. That makes sense.
But it can mate, yeah, but it can mate with a human for fun, like just for pleasure.
Oh, well, I have heard ghost stories involving like waking up and like a ghost is in the bed with the person. So you actually may be onto something.
Yeah, well, that's like a sleep paralysis thing usually. A lot of sleep paralysis, stories deal with the entity is on top of you when you wake up, you can't move, and it's...
Is it an intimate thing?
For the ghost, it is, yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole like genre of literature that's like erotic, paranormal erotic stuff.
Really?
So I bet you there's a lot of like, oh, yeah, heck yeah, you don't read that stuff? If you go to the bookstore, a large enough bookstore, look around and you'll find like erotic supernatural stuff.
I mean,
exists.
look at the movie Ghost. I guess that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Let's move on to the next one. This one's short and sweet. I like it because it's like a winter-themed one. I like when like the ghost story really has a strong setting. Lucas's frigid ghost of Riverport, Nova Scotia, is set during a snowstorm. Listen to this.
This is Lucas Higney speaking, sending this message from Lunenburg County. First ghostly encounter that I've ever had was down at my father's old house in Rose Bay, Riverport area. My father was kind of known down there, and he had quite a bit of friends, and it wasn't uncommon for people to pop by. There was a blizzard, like quite a bad snowstorm, and we heard a knock on the door. So my father yelled, "Come on in," and we waited. No one came in. Then we heard the knock again, and this was my brother and my father and I. They knocked twice. My father yelled again, "Hey, yeah, come on in, door's open." Still nothing. Then we heard a knock again, a third time. My father yelled. Still nothing. So by this time, we were getting a little curious, like, who is that out there pounding on the door? So we all walked out together. We opened the door, and there was no one there. Which may not seem creepy, but when we looked down, there was no footsteps in the snow. So that gave me... There was just no explanation for it. So to this day, just talking about it gives me chills.
I think the obvious explanation and kind of the elephant in the room is this is a snowstorm, so there probably was some wind. What was near the door that could have like swung and banged against it? But that said, this isn't like banging that tricked one person. Multiple people in the home were under the impression that this was someone banging on the door, which is like a unique kind of banging, like a dunk, dunk, dunk.
Right.
Where if it was the wind, that you'd think it'd be like dunk, dunk, dunk.
Right, and like have a like a rhythm, if you will.
Yeah, someone at the door has a bit of a rhythm. If it's friendly, it's like don't, 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 don't. Like I often do that knock.
Yeah, not everybody does that knock though.
No. Is this a ghost who is just damn cold and wanted to come in? Was it a bit of mass hysteria where everyone in that home was under the impression that there was someone trying to get in, but it was just, I don't know what it could have been. I'd have to see their doorstep. What was happening here?
Not to linger on the all ghosts being naked thing, but
oh god,
if it was a ghost and they were naked because their clothes don't come with them, they're outside in the cold and the snow, and they're knocking to get inside so they could get warm. But
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I think in reality, your first theory is probably correct here, where it was the wind blowing something against the door that sounded like a knock. And also the footprints that he mentioned at the end, how when they opened the door, there was no footprints. Obviously, in a snowstorm where there's wind and snow, the footprints, obviously would be covered. If
not that quickly, though. If this person's banging on the door and you go and open the door right like seconds after they banged on it, even in like a horrific snowstorm, you'd still see some remnant on the front step.
It's possible. Depends on kind of, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'll just say that.
Okay. I think this is possibly a ghost story. I have this thing with ghosts and electricity. Having like the atmospheric conditions to allow snow to fall would be conducive to thunder and lightning. There'd be electricity in the air, so I could see that kind of stirring things up. Also, it's happening at night. So many ghost stories happen at night, and I think there's something about the human mind and perception and your senses. When you're tired late at night, I think you're more open to allow these experiences in. So I think the writing is on the wall that, yes, there was a cold ghost that for one reason or another was trying to get into that home. But whatever you think about ghosts and think about this story, the next story is a special one. It's going to be one of my favorite stories of the night. It's one of the better ghost stories I've ever heard. And it's actually a little bit emotional, and it's very Canadian because it involves hockey. Let's move right into the next story. We'll simply call it the hockey puck.
Hi, Jordan. I'm calling with a story for your episode about the supernatural. I heard your creep episode where you were talking to Madelayne at the end about this, and you called her down to earth and said she seemed like a person who wouldn't experience the supernatural. I think most of my friends and family would say the same thing about me. I'm not a very spiritual person. I never believed in ghosts or any of those things at all. But something happened to me 25 years ago that I've never told anyone. I guess I was afraid people would think I was crazy, or I wasn't sure how they'd react. And I don't think about it much. It's crazy what you can block out. I guess if I thought about this too much, it would alter my perception of reality, and so I don't. But I've never told the story, and I think I can now. So this is a story about one of my best friends at the time, when I was growing up. And we played hockey together from a very young age. We started playing hockey together when we were 6 or 7. And we scored our first goal in the same game. I scored, I think, in the second period, and he scored in the third. And, at the end of the game, both of us wanted the puck because it was our first goal. So we kind of compromised because we were friends, and we decided we'd share the puck. He would have it for a while, and then he would let me have it for a while, and we traded it back and forth. And then when we got older, teenagers, we kind of turned it into a game where we would hide it on each other, right? So I'd hide it somewhere in his house or car, in his bag or locker or something, and then he'd hide it on me, and we'd kind of see how good we could hide the puck from one another. And he died unexpectedly just early into my senior year of high school, right around this time of year. I think it was early October. And I went to his funeral, and I put the puck in his coffin. And, they buried him, and I finished high school that year, and I went to college. And the first year back from college, I came back home for the summer. And the room that I had my whole childhood, my mother had cleaned it out because she wanted to remodel it. So she'd taken all my stuff and put it into another room and put a lot of my belongings into a box. And so I was going through the box, and near the bottom, I found the puck. And I have to tell you something about this puck. It was a unique puck. It had some advertising on it that were sponsors of our hockey league, and we had both kind of signed the puck like kind of an autograph, like we were famous hockey players. So it wasn't like a puck that you could mistake for another one. It was very specific and unique. So I found this puck that I put in his coffin and watched go in the ground in this box that my mother had cleaned out of my room. And, you know, I can't think of an explanation of how it could have gotten there. And, you know, after a while, I just, like I said, stopped thinking about it. I don't have the puck anymore. I got rid of it. It bothered me to look at. And then I just kind of blocked it out, like I said. So 25 years later, I still don't know what to make of it. Maybe you have an explanation of how it could have gotten there. I don't know.
Oh, that was a story. And I have no explanation. It's one thing if it was just a generic puck. This is a puck with a specific advertiser, both of their signatures on it. This is one of those stories that I believe that guy in his voice. I believe him 100%. And this is a story that you could never explain this to someone.
No.
So what the hell happened?
I think this is one of those stories that just proves that there is something else, whether it's another dimension or like, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and how can you explain it? How can you even, try to do that? It's impossible. And yeah, so I mean, like we've all kind of said, we're kind of open-minded to the idea of these things occurring and other dimensions, these energies, all of these things that are happening around us that we can't see and we can't understand, but there's so much going on around us that we have no control over, and that's probably the most logical way to explain how the puck ended up where it ended up.
Mm-hmm. And it's quite visual as well, like a bit cinematic. He was he did a great job of telling that story. I could hear the emotion in his voice and just the way he described it. I watched that play out in my mind. That was a great story. We'll take a deep breath. The fire's still raging. We'll get the next round of s'mores. We'll have our final break of the night. And when we get back, we'll have our final ghost story. But it's a very good one. It's going to be hard to follow the hockey puck, but Lisa's oblivious friend and the things she saw or didn't see in a graveyard will give us a lot to talk about after this break. I love ghost stories set in graveyards. I've always enjoyed graveyards, much like the story we're going to hear. Growing up in small town Cape Breton in Sydney, it wasn't uncommon for my friends and I to end up in a graveyard during our weekend nights, just for whatever reason. It was just a safe, private place to hang out and do the things we didn't want people seeing us do. Let's hear what happened to Lisa's group of friends, specifically to Lisa's oblivious friend during one night in a graveyard.
So this is a teenager story. When I was 16, I went on spring break with my family. I was gone for a week, and when I came back, I got together with one of my best friends to catch up on everything I missed. And we met up in a Hardee's, I think it was, on a Saturday afternoon. And we were just, gossiping, and ghosts and spooky stuff was supernatural, was the furthest thing from our minds. My friend was a really sweet girl, really genuine, not somebody that would lie to me or make anything up. And she started telling me about what I missed. And so back in those days, there weren't many options of places to go. So on occasion, we would sneak into a cemetery when there was nothing else to do. And usually we went to this place that was like down a dirt road in the last suburb before the country, not quite in the country, but close. And it was like old and dark and no one around. So we liked that particular spot because there was no chance of getting in trouble. But my friends decided not to do that. They decided to go to this huge cemetery down the street. And this was a really bad idea because it was it was an entire city block, and it was surrounded by really busy streets, even late at night, bright street lights. And as I recall, it had
a wrought iron fence in some areas and a chain link fence, so you could see right into it. You had to go pretty far into the cemetery to be hidden. And so my friend, in telling me this, was, saying that she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't want to go, but she was pretty much bullied into it by our other friends. So she was pretty much venting and complaining about all this. So they went, and by the time they got there, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they had to climb the fence in full view of the street. And my friend kind of went ahead and was trying to get our other friends to be quiet, not draw any attention to themselves, and get to the center of the cemetery. They were totally blowing her off, and the word she kept using was obnoxious. They were dancing and singing and dancing on people's graves and yelling, and so she was looking all around, ready to bolt as she saw cop lights. And as she's telling me this, she just kind of in passing says, and there was this old couple in the cemetery, and I didn't want them to see us. And I said, wait a minute, there were other people in the cemetery? Were they homeless people? Because we had seen homeless people once before. And she said, no, they weren't homeless. They were really well dressed old people, and they were mourning. And I'm like, what? They were mourning? That doesn't make any sense. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you mean they were, what did they look like? And she said they were old. And I'm like, well, how old? 70, 80? And she's like, yeah, 80. And they were, he was wearing a suit, she was wearing a dress. They looked very serious, and they looked sad. And I asked her, did they see you? Did they talk to you? And she said, no. Luckily they didn't notice us. They just stood there. And so I'm like, that is really weird. That doesn't make any sense. And so I kept asking her about it. And as I did, she started to kind of think about it, and it started to dawn on her right in front of me how weird this was. And I said, the cemetery was closed, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, the cemetery was closed. And she said, yes. And I said, you had to climb a fence to get in there, right? And she said, yes. And we both just kind of looked at each other, and the hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and she was turning kind of white, and we freaked out. And she just kept saying, I don't know. Like, it hadn't really dawned on her how weird it was. So that's my story. I wasn't there. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I 100% believe my friend did. And I can't explain it. Maybe this old couple climbed the fence and went in the cemetery, but I don't know. It seems more likely a ghost to me.
It seems like her friend, completely oblivious to the fact that it wasn't police arresting them in the graveyard they should have been worried about. It was the fact that they were like interfering with two people who've probably been dead for a very long time, having a reflective moment on a bench in the middle of the night. This is a ghost story in my mind without any question. Madelayne, what do you make of this?
Well, maybe the reason they looked sad was because of the tomfoolery that was going on with her friends.
Yeah, it's if this couple, well, I wonder, like, if it is ghosts. So it's a husband and wife who were buried side by side here for 50 years, and they come out and have their last date, every night at 2 a.m, let's say, something like that's happening. I wonder if they're aware of what's even going on in the graveyard, or if they're just on their own doing their thing in their own place and time. I wonder, because I feel like if they were annoyed by the teenagers dancing around on their graves, they would do more than just sit there sad. Ghosts, like, they should have power, right, to really freak out.
Well, that's my question about ghosts and paranormal. Like, do they know what year it is? Do they know they're dead? Are they unable to communicate with people that are living? Or, like, there's so many questions.
Yeah, I feel that they, in actuality, because I mean, literature and movies and television have kind of taken ghosts into all different directions and what they're capable of. But I think that it's just kind of a repeated energy kind of circling over and over and over again, where they just kind of, this one action that they do is just kind of repeated. And I don't think there's any real thought into it. I don't think there's any real control over it. But these could have been two living people. They could have been just an older couple that maybe comes here because, you know, this time of night works for them, and they sneak over the fence. Maybe they got some agility to them, and they're standing there and they're, you know, visiting a loved one's grave, and then, you know, the wife maybe turns to the husband and says, "Don't you think it's weird that there's some teenagers here? I mean, isn't the graveyard closed? I mean, isn't it 1 a.m? Like, are we seeing ghosts, like teenage girl ghosts?" And yeah, and then the husband probably says, "No, they're dressed in modern clothes. There's no way they're ghosts."
No way. Oh man, there's nothing that would be worse than being locked in a graveyard in the middle of the night with a pack of teenagers.
Oh, I would crawl into one of the graves, bury myself alive.
Yeah, and just let eternity pass. Well, that was our last ghost story of the night. Let's do our favorites. I'm gonna go first because it's an obvious choice. I have to say the Puck story was my story of the night. Just as a reminder to both of you, we heard about the caretaker ghost of the Hume Hotel, the silent woman in the St. John's Airbnb, the Lawrencetown Beach ghost ship, the Grudge movie cats, the frigid ghost of Riverport, and of course, Lisa's oblivious friend in the graveyard. What say you at Handsome Aaron Airport? What ghost story is going to follow you home tonight?
Well, I agree with you that the Puck is definitely the best story, you know, in terms of having all of the beats that a story is going to want to have. But I think the one that I think is a good second place story is the hotel one. And the reason I like that one so much as well is because after the you know, their daughters saw the man in the hat with the mustache staring at her, and then the next day they learn about the history of that room and that hotel and the caretaker and everything, and then it matches up with the image that the daughter saw. So I thought that was made the story very credible and very interesting.
Yeah, Angela straight up gave the ghost's name in that. So yeah, she put it together. That was a great story. How about you, Madelayne?
Oh, the Puck number one, just because there was like, it's just like a personal story. And he also hadn't told anyone but us. We are the chosen ones.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But yeah, that was definitely my favorite. I'm trying to think of what would come in as a second place, because I was thinking the same thing about the hotel. Kids and animals have a sixth sense, and I always trust them.
I should also say the hockey puck story. Yeah. I don't know if this was intentional. That was sent anonymously. Sometimes people do that because they just don't fill in the fields correctly when they send the voicemail. But that came through anonymously. And that said, if anyone has a story to share, a ghost story, we're already accepting stories for next year's Halloween special. If you go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact, you can send us a voicemail there telling your story, as well as if anyone had their voice aired in this episode, go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact and click the Claim Your Swag Pack button, and we'll send you something as a thank you for having your voice aired on the show tonight. This has been fantastic. The s'mores were delicious. The fire was raging and well fed by the many logs we got during our breaks. This was a great night. All we have left to do is look forward to Halloween, and I'm so excited. I love trick-or-treating, and this year my kids and I are going to be militant in our approach to the neighborhood. We're getting to every door, and we're going to end up with a garbage bag of candy. Mark my words.
More importantly, what's everyone being?
One of my kids is going to be Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's. The other is going to be Canada's handsomest Harry Potter. And I don't really dress up. I go as like the dad chaperone, but really what I am is the like come on, boys, quicker. We go host to host to host. No crossing the street. We're going to stay on the same side of the street and go up this way and then cross. And I'm like the Halloween drill sergeant. I've been doing this for 40 years. I know how to trick.
So you're the drill sergeant.
Are you dressing up, Aaron? You are. You always do.
Oh, I do. I bought one today, but it wasn't like anything I wanted to dress up in because on Halloween I'm going to a dance at a place called the Red Barn here. It's actually where I did the improv show on the weekend.
Are you plugging the event in case anyone wants to go dance with you?
If any listeners want to come and dance, yeah, I'd be happy to dance with them, and we could just talk about whatever they want to talk about. I just want to get to know them.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm dressing
what's the
up.
costume?
The costume, I went to Spirit Halloween today, and I said, I didn't say, this is what I said to myself. I just want something baggy, comfortable, and warm. I don't care really what it is. I don't have any motives here about, trying to portray my personality or my interests, So I just want something comfortable that says, hey, this is a costume. And so the costumes, the really good ones were really expensive. So that was another thing I had to consider was the price. So I'm like, well, I don't want to pay more than like $30 for a costume.
Halloween's not cheap no more.
No. So anyway, I got a prisoner's costume where it's like the big striped pants and shirt.
Nice.
Baggy with a striped hat, and there's like a, prisoner number across the chest. And so I'll be very casual and comfortable in that. And I'll be able to really dance well in it, I think.
Are you dressing up, Madelayne?
I am. I have 2 costumes for the first time, ever.
Okay. Why do I see you being like something related to a cat?
No, not this year. So
not this year. Every other year.
I'm going to an actual murder mystery party. We've discussed this earlier, but I'm going to a murder mystery party, and it's 1920s themed. So I got a cute little flapper dress that I can resell as a Taylor Swift Eras Tour dress. And then, so before that, I'm going to take my kid trick-or-treating, and we're going she's going to be Bingo from Bluey, and my husband and I are going to be Chili and Bandit, which are the parents. But, speaking of expensive, so we bought these in September at Spirit Halloween, but for our 3 costumes, it was $205.
Wow.
And I never thought I would be that, sucker. But I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited about our family costume.
Oh, it'll make a great photo.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and probably you two as well, it was more common to make your own Halloween costume. Like my dad always did mine because my dad knows how to sew and stuff. He'd always make my Halloween costumes as a kid. As the Halloween gets more and more expensive, I wonder if people are going to go back to doing that. I kind of hope so.
Nah, people are just going to continue to live beyond their means.
Yeah, generally. Yeah. I do see some TikTokers who go into their closet and see what kind of Halloween costumes they can build out of what they already own.
Kind of like what Garfield and Odie did that time.
Exactly like that.
I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Canadian Gothic. Before we end here, I want to thank everyone who contributed their stories to this episode. Your stories helped us get in the Halloween mood, but also reminded us that the world's a little bit more interesting than many of us care to admit. Now, I'm sure there's many other stories out there, so let me take a moment and invite anyone out there who had an encounter with the beyond to stop what you're doing, go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact, use the voice recorder, and tell us all about it. We'd like to include your story in a future episode. Now, with that said, I'm going to start wrapping up this episode, but before we do, I have many thanks to give out. First, a big thanks to Aaron and Madelayne for joining us for this episode, Monty Datta, who contributes the music for this show, and Linz from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you to every one of you listening to the Canadian Gothic. Without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. And now on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Delta, Vanessa, and Nick, we appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out here in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple bucks a month and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at thecanadiangothic.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. Until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Thank you for listening to Canadian Gothic.